Okay, so action. So, welcome to the Divine Constellation. We are Jim, Antonio, and Katharina, and I have proposed the thing that we're going to talk about today, and I would like to start it with a story. When I was younger, I lived in London, in England, and I went to university and studied design, engineering design, and I never really used it because I wasn't very good at it. But what happened is after I finished my degree, I was looking for work, and a friend of mine started working in films. And it was just student films, and he wasn't really being paid at the beginning. And since, that's now his career, and he's been doing that for many years. But at the time, he said to me that he'd got offered to work on a film, and would I like to help him? And it was in famous studios in England called Pinewood Studios, which is where a lot of the big films kind of used to be made. I don't know if they're still made, but where they used to be made in England. And it was a really big thing. And we weren't being paid, but we did meet the director of the film, and he told us what he wanted. And he was very specific. And he said that at one point, what he needed was us to kind of be technical helpers, excuse me, and kind of camera technicians as well. But also, at one point, he needed to flood the whole set with bubbles. And it was our job to sort that out. Now, we were very young, very wet behind the ears, had no idea what we were doing, but were very kind of engineering brained and thought, well, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. We'll just work it out as we go along. And so we were there must have been, I don't know, 20, 25 people working on this film. And there were lighting people and camera people and sound people and props people. And there were some actors and the director and his producer and us, me and my friend. And there was this wonderful camaraderie, and we were all young. And even though I was kind of doing technical stuff, one of the lighting guys would say, hold this, and I would hold it. Or one of the sound guys would say, can you hold the microphone here for me? And excuse me, got a frog in my throat. And so I would do that. And there was a blurring of the lines of, it wasn't just this is the camera person, this is the lighting person, this is the sound person, these are the guys doing the bubbles. Everyone was kind of was chipping in and doing everything. And the day came where the bubble machine arrived, and we had to work out how to use this bubble machine and how to fill a set that was, it was a sound stage. It was big, and we had to fill this whole set that was full of lighting with electricity and cameras and sound with electricity and water and bubbles and bubble mixture and, washing up liquid on a huge scale. And we did it, and it was part amazing and part disaster. But it got filmed, and it was a short film, and the film got made. And it was so much fun to be there, not having a clue what you're doing, but up for it anyway. And everyone having a common goal of, this is what we're making, and I don't know if you guys have ever worked in anything like that, but on the wall, there was a storyboard of every shot that needed to be done and in what order and when and who the actor was and, all this kind of thing. So everyone could go, right, now we're doing this shot. The camera needs to be here. The bubbles need to be there or whatever. And it was really exciting. And it was an adventure, and it was kind of dangerous. And we were a little bit kind of rebellious, kind of cowboy, dangerous, just, well, let's just do it. And we're not being paid. So, in a way, it was an experiment too. And it was loads of fun. And it reminds me very much of what is being created here. Because there's a camaraderie between us, and we have a common goal. We're not making a film. There's no kind of film that will be made at the end of it. There is a group of people coming together. There is a constellation. There is a connecting of these kind of wild, rebellious, different people all being put in a soundstage, and one of them gets to hold the microphone, the other one a light, the other one a camera, the other one some bubbles, the other one a bubble machine, another one saying, right, I'm the director today, you do this, you do this, you do that, we're doing that. And my proposal for today was to talk about, what's our code of conduct, what's our ethic, what are the principles of creating a divine constellation? What are the principles of creating a kind of a self-nurturing system where people will come together and help each other out for a common goal, not really knowing what they're doing, but at the same time knowing very well what they're doing, each in their own field. Katharina, you have your skills. Antonio, you have yours. I have mine. As well as those people who will come in and share, their understanding of life and their skills, and we're creating a kind of melting pot of talent in a way, because everyone has their talents, everyone has their don, everyone has their skills and the things they like in life and their vision of life and how we want life to be. And we all know that it's really hard to do that on your own. And I myself have seen just how exhausting it can be to have all of that on your shoulders and make a thing happen, as you guys have as well. And I want to bring in words like, I want this to be self-nurturing. I want it to be an honourable place. I want people to be able to come in and contribute to it, to some kind of system that can create something that is greater than the sum of its parts. And while I have a vision of where it's going, I don't really know where it's going. Just like when you have a vision of you're going to make a film and I kind of want it to look like this, you don't really know what it's going to look like until it's actually been shot and edited and color, the color corrected and the sound made nice and all these things. And it's to build a community of people who come from all different kinds of backgrounds, where one is sound, one is lighting, one is camera, one is bubbles, one is, and make it work. There has to be a kind of code of conduct that people come into. But at the same time, I'm very aware that, and you mentioned this the other day, Katharina, that if you bring too many rules and rigid systems into a system, you kill the system before you kind of start it. So I think my question to you guys is, how would you bring a code of conduct into the divine constellation to make it something as great as it can be?
That is a simple question, Jim. Thank you for that.
I'm a simple person.
Yes. That's what brings us all together. I like the question. I like your story. It reminded me of a friend of mine is also studying film, and he told me about this project he did last. And it was with a director or a directing team, actually, and they were not like studied directors. Can you hear a sound right now in my background? No?
Oh, no, not in your background. No, you're fine.
Okay,
no,
perfect, because someone's screwing up there. So if you hear it, raise your hand. So, yeah, and he, so they were not actually trained or studied directors, but they were artists, and they made a film, I think the first time, actually. And what my friend said, what struck him the most, because he's trained in film and camera, and he was like, for me it's actually not about the result, it's about the process. And that's what I loved. I come from a theater background. That's what I always loved about theater and about rehearsals. And I almost found the finished production not boring, but I loved the aliveness and the possibilities, and what you said, the being rebel and trying things out, and things really being birthed in the moment and then tried out, and this trial and error and the playfulness behind it. I always loved this part of the process, and it's something that you cannot see when you see a finished production. Or I mean, there's in ways it shows. I mean, the way, for example, the actors interact with each other, and yeah, I don't want to go too much into film or theater details, but I love the image, and that's actually what this kind of, you said not too rigid structures, Jim, but like creating a structure, a system that allows for these things to happen, it's kind of like a playground that has, because we also talked before about how important structure is as well, and guidelines and boundaries and clarity. So it's not just it's not just dissolving into nothingness, but there has to be a kind of clarity or direction in a way, for me at least. But we were talking before this episode, Jim, we were talking about also our values. And I was thinking about values, and what I think would also kind of blends in with this image of a playground is, for me, curiosity is what I find is very, like, this openness to just exploring. It's kind of also what you described in the story, just like, let's see, like, there's these and these parameters, there's technical stuff, and we have water and we have bubbly fluid, and how are we going to do this? But just being curious and finding things out and being able, or just risking failing and then learning from that, and having this childlike curiosity and playfulness that in a way doesn't really worry about the consequences. Of course, there has to be, again, a structure around this, but a structure that allows for this trying. And yeah, that's one of the ingredients that I come up with. Yeah, curiosity. Yeah,
I think playfulness is also a good word, and it kind of encompasses curiosity, because there's this element of exploration in it.
Yeah,
but it goes beyond it. It's more like an attitude. Yeah. I also like the word playground, because that involves both the playfulness and the structure to hold it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like the word playground.
Yeah.
And that kind of creative space, because we could put we can get very serious and say, well, we'd like to build this thing and it needs to be like this, and there needs to be diversity, and then, it's really important that everyone comes with, with serious plan, and at the same time, there needs to be that creativity and the melting pot and the kind of danger, kind of the good danger of, well, yeah, this could just go completely wrong, but let's try stuff out. Because all of those organizations like this that I've been in or witnessed or been a part of, they always ended up serving them. How do I put it? The system ended up being the one that got served, not the people in the system. And look at all governments now. Not all, maybe not all, but the majority. And then because there is a system, it's like, no, the 10 commandments are this, the rules of law are this, you have to do this. If you want to be in our gang, you do this, and this. And there does need to be an element of that, but that is almost the last part after the curiosity and the creativity in the playground, where where people come together. There is that kind of tribal gathering where people come together and create and make and have a vision, have a cohesive vision of what we would like, but not rigid on what exactly it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I just before? Sorry, I saw you, Antonio. Just wanted to
My
say
thoughts are
something.
kind of like bubbling out.
Sorry, just wanted
No, go ahead.
to say something about what you said, Jim, about it coming second after the playfulness or after. What I found or find more and more is that part of it has to come first, as kind of like, as you said, Antonio, the playground already implies that there is a structure, because there's a slide here, and certain things you can do. I mean, and what I learned for myself in my own process, that it helps me actually to build a structure where I know this is the way around, and this is supporting me, and this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, and within that I can kind of surrender more easily and just give myself to creativity and to exploring, because I know there's something supporting that. Basically, it's more like a support, and yeah, that's what I just wanted to add.
It's also going back, like iterating with the idea of the playground. The idea of a playground is that everyone is invited to play. It's not just 3 children playing and all the rest of the children sitting down and watching them play. It's built for participation, so that everyone can find their own place to do whatever they want. And I like that idea. If we're going to build something, first of all, that it invites or it leads to fun, and where everyone participates in an equal way. Like, they have the opportunity to show up like the 3 of us are showing up here now, or whatever we do in the future. But I really liked in the document that you shared, Jim, the idea of belonging via participation, or something like that it was. And I like that. I think that's really, really important. Not followers, not like integral members of building this together, holding this space. And another idea that came when you were talking about the law of Moses. I've been watching The Chosen lately with Betul, my partner, and we were talking actually this morning, right before this meeting, about how we've created all these laws, right? And they probably came from a really good place. I mean, Moses was pretty high. But once we adopt the law as God, and we put it in the position where God should be, then God becomes this rigid thing that makes you feel guilty. And you lose the whole point. It was not about that at all. So in The Chosen, it's really beautiful to see the relationship between Jesus, who stands for the truth and love, his conversation with the Pharisees, who stand for the law and the protection of that rigid system of conduct. So they both point towards the same way of being, which is one where God is at the center and you are aligned with that so that you don't harm yourself or others. But coming from totally different perspectives, the law creates this sensation of fear and guilt if you don't do something right. And specifically, we were talking, this might seem like a bit like going away, but I have the central idea in mind. And we're talking about using Instagram and watching reels mindlessly, and how that feels. How when you finish doing that, it's been 30 minutes and your mind is full of images and you're confused, and not only that, but now you feel guilty that you didn't use your time well. And so not only did you spend 30 minutes doing something that wasn't really healthy for your mind, now you're also punishing yourself for it. And that's a completely different thing. And why are you punishing yourself for it? It's because you have accepted as the law, as God, this law, this moral code that I shouldn't do this. There's better ways to use my time, and now I've been using my time for this thing that is meaningless, and now I have to punish myself for it. And coming from that place, you feel bad and you say, okay, how can I avoid this? Just having a strong will, having more discipline, maybe it's setting a timer, or all these strategies from the small self, trying not to be hurt again by that law. And now you're resentful towards yourself and towards your concept of God and the law. And what Jesus came to show, and what love actually does, is don't try to do it by yourself. Just align yourself with love. Forgive yourself for what you just did. And that will heal the whole pattern that made you fall into that in the first place. And you won't have to depend on your own will, which is clearly not strong enough. We're all trying to do things by will, and it just doesn't work. But when you choose to forgive yourself, things start to change, actually. And you start to realize that that moral code was not God. It's not true. And that God is love. And when you align yourself with that and you allow it, you are transformed automatically, because that thing was never good for you anyway. It was not in harmony with your nature, so it will fall away if you choose what your nature really is. So coming back to the whole conversation, which is how to choose a moral, a conduct, a code of conduct, I think there's a step above that is really where that code would come from, which is a code of being. What are we really? And we've been talking, for example, about the playground and that childlike curiosity. Well, that points directly towards what Jesus shared as the kingdom of heaven. Only children or childlike people will be able to enter, because that's what we really are. So that's part of it. It's being childlike, being playful, being lighthearted about it. And something also that I remembered in the 5 minutes of meditation right before this conversation started was the fact that there's the three of us, but then there's this common being, this light that is common to the three of us and to everyone, and to offer this space to that. I took that time to do that. We talked about the mycelium, that life that is common to the three of us and manifests through us individually, but it's not an individual thing. So we are that, and the recognition of that is love. So I think it has to do with that, with acknowledging that essence of common being that has to be at the center of it. It always was at the center of this project since the first meeting. Before knowing what we were going to do, we were just doing that, sitting with that, acknowledging the four of us back then, and the fifth element, which was this presence that is common. I think that should be at the center, and from that, all conduct will come naturally and in harmony.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, in fact, I'll read out the little thing that I sent you guys of this kind of document that we have of a kind of constitution of how we would like this thing. It's just very short. They're the values that we stand for and what we explicitly reject. And the values that we stand for are integrity and honesty, respect and caring presence, depth over performance, community over consumption, creativity, courage and playfulness, belonging through contribution, embodied leadership, diversity and truth-telling, and spirituality as a lived practice. And what we explicitly reject are spiritual elitism or pretension, quick fixes, like the quick fix culture, or this kind of the savior complexes, commercial exploitation of connection, ego-driven dynamics or knowledge as power, hierarchies and control, or fake authority, spiritual bypassing dogma or conspiracy theories, and AI replacing human intimacy or toxic positivity. And it's what I find with a lot of code of conducts and the laws or the commandments or constitutions, or, well, this is how it has to be. They are very related. That, very quickly they become a system by which authority proves itself to be useful. or hierarchy proves itself as important. Well, I'm the one who knows the law. You don't know the law. I will teach you the law. Therefore, I am more than you in some way because I have the law and you don't have the law. Or I uphold the law. So it's really interesting to try to build this constellation where, as you're absolutely, Antonio, it's not a playground with the three of us playing in it. It's a playground where everyone is invited. And of course, we literally actually invite people to come and subscribe and comment, but also offer yourself up and join and say, no, I want to be a part of this. How do we do it? And what I realize reading what's been written there is that none of those are thou shalt not or thou shalt. It's not you have to do this and you have to do that. It's more, it's a vision of, do you reckon it's possible for us to create a group of people that lives by that as best as it can and allows itself to fail when it fails and goes, hold on a minute, this a problem has come along, somebody comes in and riles up the system, and what do? Do we push that person out, or do we go, hold on, this is interesting, someone's come along and thrown a spanner in the works, or a wrench, or whatever the word, we can just go, no, you're not with us, you're not part of this special thing we're building? Or do we say, okay, well, that's interesting, if this is genuinely a constellation, that person has a place in it. What is that person's place, and how does that person bring their contribution to it in a way that enhances everything? And that takes a different kind of intelligence. That takes real, proper, actual pattern recognition as intelligence, instead of good or bad. Because good or bad is utterly contextual anyway, isn't it? There is no such thing as good or bad, or right or wrong. It has to be compared to something else. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Go ahead, Katharina.
We have the same timing today. I was just thinking of the structure being something that is, if you want to call it a structure. What?
Oh, whoa.
Love that.
I say yes to that.
Yeah.
That
good. Was the divine essence just expressing
the
itself
light.
Spontaneously through me. So I don't even have to say anything anymore. It was just brilliance coming out without words or anything.
Interesting.
What I was going to say is that I was seeing us as some kind of like an organism that is alive and not a structure serving itself and kind of giving proof to its, or validating its own position of power, or this structure is right, but kind of like being an organic moving thing as well. And if there's a person coming in throwing something, like rebelling, then being curious about that as well, having a curiosity again, being like, okay, maybe there's something in the system that needs to, something might be wrong. It might be something with like something that's moving within that person that expresses just from that person, but it's like in relationship to the system. So how can we then deal with that? And maybe it's gonna adapt. And systems, just as persons, we always change, and just like nature, we evolve. And to allow the structure or the constellation to evolve with what's coming through us, and being kind of humble servants to it, more than leaders saying, okay, let's go this way and that way. But it's more like, okay, how is the way going to look next year or this week or whatever? To have that openness and curiosity also about the structure itself, and how it supports bringing as much light and love through all of us, and supporting this kind of like expansion of what wants to be. And I was thinking a lot about, when you were talking about raising a child, about supporting that child's individual development as much as possible, and not putting too much imprints and structure onto the child, but let it bloom and be taught, like let the child teach you instead of, and of course there's certain things you have to take care of as a parent, but that's the image that I had about the constellation as well.
Yeah, there is this. I remember reading something about democracy. When there is a genuine democratic system that produces longevity. When there isn't kind of free speech, when people aren't allowed to just say, no, I think that's wrong, systems start to fail. You know, kind of governments, that's when governments falter, isn't it? But when everyone is allowed to just say, well, I think this, and all of the ideas are put together and then kind of organized, that's the only way to produce a system that has longevity. Yeah, I need to research more about that. Yeah, interesting.
But there's a nuance in that, and it's that freedom of speech must be used with integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Insulting someone is not really freedom of anything.
Yeah.
So
that's quality to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part of all these systems. Kind of like, you have this right to do this, but you also have the responsibility to use it well.
Yeah.
And that's where all these big systems fail, because they get distorted, and rights turn into weapons. And so I think that's something to hold on to, and not so much reject. Regarding the document, the word reject, I don't connect with it, because I prefer to not choose that, but reject is something stronger. It's kind of like applying force against it in a way, and that only keeps it alive. That only gives it sustenance. And so, for example, I see in myself all the things that you mentioned in "we reject this." I see all of them in me playing out. You know, that they're part of my animal nature. But what I see is that they are just forms of fear. And by rejecting them, they only feel more afraid, and they hide, and they have power over my mind. Only when I recognize all these things that bring harm to yourself and others, holding them, they're unpleasant, they're harmful, but they are a call for love. It's my mind in its innocence having misunderstood the nature of reality and thinking that I have to manipulate others to get by or to get something that I supposedly don't have. Those are all errors. And so holding that and saying, I know this is not true. So let me hold on to what I know is true until it shows itself. And I stop giving energy to this by my rejection of it. And that also brings me to an idea of what if someone comes up and I don't know what the sentence you use, kind of like throwing something in the, like, well, someone who has a disruptive quality to them. I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this in one of our unrecorded conversations, but I'll say it again, which is, I remember studying when I was at Berkeley. I was in a class about spirituality, and the teacher talked about, there was this community, I think in Australia or something like that, like a tribe that had this particular culture where when anyone misbehaved, what does the world do with people who misbehave? Well, they banish them, they reject them, they punish them some way. But that's because we haven't understood the power of love. So we think that attack is the powerful way to go. An eye for an eye. But in this tribe, they understood something. And so what they did was, when someone stole or hit someone or did something that wasn't in harmony, they gathered the whole tribe, put this person in the center, and one by one, they would tell this person why they love them, why they appreciate this person. So a reminder of your whole community that you are loved, that you are appreciated, that you are valuable in this community, that we are not judging you. How do you think that person behaves after that? So the point is, all these things that are out of harmony are calls for love. And if you hang on to that and you see, okay, Holy Spirit, show me why this is the case, it shows itself, because that's the reality of it. It's just someone who has become disconnected and is so afraid.
Yeah, this reminds me very much of my daughter. She goes to a school where most of the kids have kind of challenges with learning, or autism, or ADHD, or all of these kind of labels that go around. And these kids have been in other schools and obviously been treated badly or bullied, or developed kind of internal strategies to be able to cope with being in a system that rejected them, which makes them kind of aggressive or disruptive or what have you. And they come to my daughter's school where everyone is like that, and everyone has developed those strategies, but everyone is doing their best to sit together and learn. And it's, and it doesn't necessarily always work. But you see how those behaviors aren't the person. And then the person gives up certain behaviors and takes on certain other behaviors. Yeah. It's a very interesting one. And also the wording, like the wording in the document to reject. And we've had, we've talked about wording and the quality of wording and what words to use. These things are so important because one word, I have that with the word reject. It's an intense word,
strong,
isn't it? Yeah. And if, if one person says, hold on, that actually hurts. Well, then we know, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that hurt. Yeah, actually, it hurts me too. Right. Okay. Well, then we need to adjust and continuous fine adjustment instead of, no, this is the law. You can't have 10 commandments because things change. You can't have a constitution like they have in the United States. Without it being it needs to kind of be a living document as well, doesn't it? I think that's very interesting. There's more. There's definitely more to this conversation.
Yeah.
But
I think this is really what we're doing. This is the essence of it, like choosing how to be, recognizing who we are, and how does that show up in the world, and sharing it with others, which is part of our essence. It's sharing.
Yeah, completely. Let's leave that one there. Thank you very much. We will continue. Please feel free to subscribe and comment and reach out to us if you have questions or you're interested in what we're doing. And we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.